For Peter Coca, everybody. Yeah.
Taste in fucking football teams that I don't agree with. You guys know fucking New York totally different than I know New York, man. Totally, let me tell you, fucking totally, man. When you guys talk about New York, I think like I'm in the fucking... Huh? Yeah, tell me. Yeah. This is a piece from a show I was doing called Tales from the Little Apple. That's next to the Big Apple, which is Manhattan. The sun was beating down heavy on the rooftops across the way. It had been another one of those long, lonely, restless nights, man, 3 in a row. My baby had left me and I was all alone, and the rent was due. I was feeling a little like Joe Gillis. You remember him? William Holden played him in that movie, Sunset Boulevard. Joe Gillis, a bust-out actor, a bust-out writer who couldn't come up with an original idea. Worrying does that sometimes. You see, Joe hadn't had a gig in a while, and that repo man was after his car. And for those of you out there who don't know how Joe ended up, it was in a pool, face down in the pool. And as the gods would have it, I was living right down the street from where Joe used to live, on Ivar. In fact, every time I'd pass the El Tornado, I'd always say a little prayer for Joe. That's the apartment house Joe used to live in, the El Tornado. Well, Easter was coming up, and I decided to head back east for a week. It had been a while since I saw dear old Mom, and Cousin Johnny Boy had sent me an open-end plane ticket months earlier with a little note. If you like taking a trip back east, cuz, it's on me. Cousin Johnny Boy was rolling in the bucks. The gangster business was good, and I was looking to hit him up for some of those bucks. So I packed a bag and jumped on a plane. I love flying over New York late at night. New York is so romantic late at night, especially from high above. I could hear Thelonious Monk and Charlie Rouse playing down there in the Village Gate. New York always reminds me of jazz, booze, drugs, and late nights. Yeah, I used to do them all. Once upon a time in the Big Apple, I used to do them all. Now, Cousin Johnny Boy was like 3 fucking hours late picking me up at the airport, reminding me how unreliable a dude could be. Finally, he comes dancing into the waiting room holding a big fat cigar, looking like that Don that he always wanted to be. But you see, it wasn't in the cards for Cousin Johnny Boy. No, you see, Macedonians do not become Dons. Johnny Boy gave me a brotherly hug. What's going on, cuz? How you doing? He knew I was pissed off at him. He picked up my bag and I followed him to the car. Now, Cousin Johnny Boy's always driving a new Cadillac, and he stops on the side of this old beat-up car. Man, I ain't never seen more dents on a car in my life, man. This car belonged in a junkyard, and the back seat was filled with cardboard boxes. I started thinking, either Cousin Johnny Boy is trying to keep a low profile here, or I was in big trouble, man. Borrowing-wise, that is, I was in big trouble. And on the highway, I realized that I was in big trouble borrowing-wise. Cousin Johnny Boy told me he was broke to the bone. His wife left him, he blew every penny he had, owed everybody in town, and all the wise guys were pissed off at him because they hadn't seen him in over a month. But don't worry, cuz, says Cousin Johnny Boy, don't worry, man. I'm going back to fucking work, man. Don't worry. And I got a feeling you're going to bring me luck, cuz. Besides, I need somebody on the outside, man, looking in. You know what I mean, cuz? I didn't have the foggiest of what he meant. Thank you.
Come on, man. Peter Coca, everybody.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
Get that thing working right, baby.
Yeah, we're working on it. You know, we're building like the 49ers
are. Bet on the Super Bowl. And
you still owe me $1.
I had the brother, I gave you the fucking money. I had the brother that lost, right? And he says to me, well, son, you know that coach doesn't know how to coach. His second year in football, he's in the Super Bowl, but he don't know how to coach. That's what I got to deal with.
Hey, even a broken clock is right twice a day, you know.
Okay, a little footnote for this story. George Raft in the 30s and 40s was one of the most popular movie stars in the world.
Right on.
In fact, Bogart took his place in Casablanca because he wouldn't do it. He was a real big star. Just a little footnote. Anyways, Cousin Johnny Boy, everybody called my Cousin Johnny Boy Cousin Johnny Boy. And Cousin Johnny Boy liked to walk the shady side of the street. So did his partner, Richie. Real laid-back kind of guy with never a hair out of place. Liked to torch grasshoppers and little black spiders with that solid gold butane lighter of his. And Cousin Johnny Boy, well, Cousin Johnny Boy was a little like Zorba the Greek. And Zorba came out here to Hollywood for a few days on business. Shady business, I'm sure. And he's wearing this beautiful handmade leather jacket. It was beautiful. I says, Johnny Boy, that is one beautiful jacket. Johnny Boy takes off the jacket, tosses it to me, and says, it's yours, cuz. Now, like I said, this jacket was beautiful, but it just wasn't me. So I end up giving it to Pondu Pig, who gives it to somebody else, right? I come back east for a week, visit their old mom. Johnny Boy picks me up at the airport, like usual, drops me off at Mom's place, tells me he'll pick me up in the late morning. I'm having coffee in the kitchen, right? And Johnny Boy comes in with Richie. Richie gives me a big hug. Welcome home, cuz. Welcome home. Where the fuck's my jacket? Now, I put two and two together real fast, man. And told Richie that I lost it. Rather than go until I gave it to, what's his name, who gave it to somebody else, I just told him I lost it. And I could see Richie wasn't buying my lost story. And I says, wait a second, I thought that was Johnny Boy's jacket. And Richie looks over at Johnny Boy sitting at the table and says, no, man, it was my fucking jacket. Not his jacket, my jacket. Somebody gave me that jacket, not him. Johnny Boy's smile got bigger. Now, Richie spots this book on the table that I brought back with me to read on the plane, the George Raft story. And George gave it to me a few weeks before, and I figured I'd take it on the plane and do it. And he wrote something in there about, he's always trying to get me some acting work, and every time I'd see him, he'd say, I don't know anybody anymore, kid, they're all gone, DeMille, Mayor, they're all gone, you know? Anyways, he sees what's his name wrote in there for me. He says, you know George Raft? I says, yeah, man, and you really like him. He's a real nice guy. And Richie wants to borrow the book. I says, I want it back before I leave. No problem, says Richie. Big fucking mistake. The day I'm supposed to leave, the day before I'm supposed to leave, Richie, I say, Richie, where's the book? And Richie says, oh, sorry, man, I lost it. Of course, this was paid back for the jacket, right? Now, on the way to the airport, I says to Johnny Boy, Johnny Boy, I want that book, man. You best get me that book back. No problem, said Johnny Boy, you get the book back. What are you worried about? No fucking problem. Which I knew was bullshit. I grew up with the guy who's been pulling shit on me like this since we were kids. Hell, I wouldn't put it past Johnny Boy to get that book back from Richie and give it to somebody else like he gave me Richie Like I said, I grew up with the guy, right? Now, many years later, when I think about Johnny Boy in that book, Johnny Boy has become like a Buddha to me. Every time I get attached to some material thing too much, I think of Johnny Boy and just let it go. I don't bother with it anymore, man. The guy has become like a Buddha to me. Thank you. Whoa.